Thank you for joining Jennifer Schaus and Associates in our 2019 Webinar Wednesday series. We are coming to you live from downtown Washington, D.C. Our webinars are held every Wednesday, and you can find the upcoming schedule on our website. Past webinars and all recordings are also on our website and on our YouTube channel, along with over 160 other recordings on federal contracting topics. All are complimentary. If you have questions for our speaker today, you can contact him directly with the information you'll see on the last slide. And this is just a little bit about us. We are a Washington, D.C. based firm and provide services for federal contractors. This ranges from market analysis reports to proposal writing and post-award compliance. More information is on our website, so please visit us there. And these are a few of our upcoming events. You can find more information on our website or on these links. And we now offer advertising in our newsletter and webinars, so please contact me with the email you see on your screen for more information. And our webinar today is sponsored by AccuTrack, and here's a short message from them.
AccuTrack Consulting and Accounting Services is an 8A WOSB CPA firm committed to supporting entities sustain growth in government contracting. Our outstanding DCAA accounting solutions reduce audit risk, improve cash flows, and give you peace of mind. Contact us today to learn how we can enhance your DCAA accounting efforts.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Today, our speaker is Stephen Vito from Entrepreneurial Government, and thank you for joining us. We are going to be covering 5 easy steps of content marketing for government contractors. Stephen, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you.
Well, fantastic. Thank you, Mallory. And I see that we have a whole bunch of people attending today, and I thank you all for being here. I'm a very, very big believer that companies have to have a marketing communication strategy if they want to succeed. It's just so fundamental. And unfortunately, too often, I think companies don't. And I think the reasons vary. Often, senior management don't understand it, don't know how to do it, don't know how to measure it. So I put together this very easy guide on how companies can put together a marketing communication strategy. I want to thank Mallory and Jennifer Schaus for letting me be on their webinar today to talk about this. Okay, let's get right to it. Mallory, if you can put the next slide up. So let's talk about what is content marketing. By the way, marketing communications comes in all different forms. I mean, it can be advertising and lately, I would say the last few years, what's taken on a lot of steam is content marketing. So let's define what it is and why I think you should be doing it. So definition, content, this is, by the way, comes from the Content Marketing Institute. Content marketing is creating and distributing valuable, relevant, and consistent content to attract and acquire a clearly defined audience with the objective of driving a profitable customer action. I think a couple of the words, and those are my italics, by the way, a couple of words that are important to know is the content has to be valuable and relevant to the audience, not to you, the sender. And of course, you have to be consistent. Doing something once is not going to achieve the results you want, and it has to go to a clearly defined audience. So why do it? Well, when it's done right, and by the way, that's the big caveat, it has to be done right. Content marketing will help your message break through the noise. And even in the federal market, the noise level is pretty extreme. It builds loyalty. It obviously conveys a message. It generates and nurtures prospects and does a lot more. As I said previously, the advertising business, I mean, that is a complexity all unto itself. Content marketing, I think, is less complex, but certainly I think can reap just as good results. Okay, next slide. So here's the 5 easy steps. I'll give it to you up front. One is strategy development, and I'm going to go into these obviously a little further. One is strategy development. The second is content development. Third is you have to deliver it, and obviously deliver it to the right audience. Next is you want to measure your results. And then finally, you want to make revisions because guess what? You will not get it right the first time. And here's a tip that I give some of my clients is let's not get overly complicated because sometimes if you do too much planning, you're going to paralyze yourself. Just jump into it, do it in a low risk basis, see what the results give you, and then make modifications along the way. Okay, next slide, Mallory. Strategy development. Now, again, let's keep it simple. So this is the point where you want to look at the who, what, when, where, why. So who was the intended audience? And audiences could be plural. Maybe it's clients, present clients. Maybe it's prospective clients. Maybe within the clients, there are some people that you need to win over for a variety of reasons. Maybe it's partners. You know, in this market, in the federal market, you virtually never go to market by yourself. You always have a partner. It's important to communicate to them. And maybe there are others. And then you want to define in this whole strategy, what does success look like? After you put together this plan and you execute it, what is it that you want to achieve? And please do not say revenue. You know, that's often said, and it sort of irritates me when people say that, because as you know, in the government market, it could take months, years to get through a program, to get it approved, and to start seeing revenue. And so revenue doesn't always immediately follow your marketing tactics. And if it does, great, but there are other things that you could measure that I think will give you more insight into the success of what you're doing. You also want to think about over what period of time do you want to achieve these results. You want to talk about what is your budget. This is very important, obviously. And again, how will you measure this success? So those are just some of the basics on just developing a strategy. Okay, Mallory, next slide. So you have a basic strategy. Now you want to develop the content. And here's what I say when you put together content is, what is it that your intended audience needs to know to do their job? And then also, what content is valuable to them? And there's a lot of good sources for that. I think one of the most important sources is your sales team. And for the cost of pulling together a roundtable, the cost of buying some bagels or sandwiches, you could have a really nice conversation with your sales leadership, people who are interacting with partners and customers and clients, and ask them, what do, again, your intended audience, what do they need to know to do their job, and what information is valuable to them? And by the way, content can vary depending on the audience. One size does not fit all. This gives you the ability, your company, the ability to portray yourselves as thought leaders or somebody that is experienced in whatever the area may be. Okay, Mallory, next slide. Delivery of the content. Okay, so you put together your strategy. Now you've assembled the content. You know what you want to talk about. Now you have to deliver it. And you have a lot of choices here. And I wouldn't say just pick one. Try to pick several. You can do video. And by the way, I'll put a little plug. Jennifer Schaus and Mallory were nice enough to ask me to be this webinar. Excuse me. And I'm going to be doing another webinar today at 12:30. That one's just focused on video, however. And in that webinar, I'm going to talk about the statistics of video. It is compelling. I firmly believe every company has to have some element of video in their marketing toolkit. It is becoming that important. And I'll go through the statistics later. But video, white papers, blogs, newsletters, I'm a big believer in that. Doing live events, doing webinars, webcasts, podcasts, infographics, working with the press, sponsored content, and there's so much more. There's a lot of ways that you can deliver this content and measure it. But delivering content is going to be key, and you want to deliver it with impact to the specific audience. By the way, one thing I didn't put on here is social media. The good thing about social media nowadays is you can be very specific on the intended audience and, of course, measure its performance. Okay, Mallory, next slide. And this is also talking about the delivery and things that you need to think about when you put together your content delivery. One of the other things I want to stress is consistency. Doing anything in marketing, a one and done is a waste of money. You need to be consistent. So think of that up front. Is it, however you're going to deliver it, is it going to be weekly, monthly, whatever? And think also, when you're thinking about cost, think about how you could leverage and repurpose the content you do deliver. So it's not just the initial cost, but how the content can be used over in multiple ways. That's important. You want to get the most out of your content. And quality matters. This is certainly true in video, but it's true in other means. You have to, rise to the occasion. And if you're not a good writer and you want to put together a white paper, I suggest going to a professional writer. Same thing with video. Yes, it's going to cost a few dollars, but in the end, you will find that it's going to get better results for you. Then you want to distribute it. I'm a big believer in social media. My background is in more traditional media, so I certainly believe in that as well. But social media offers some really compelling solutions today. And I would certainly suggest that whatever you do, think about how you can distribute your content via social media. And I wouldn't rely on organic placement. Organic placement is, let's say Facebook, for example, is just writing something on your timeline and putting it out there, or even on LinkedIn. There was a time that was going to maybe give you some good results, but those days are gone. You have to really put some dollars behind it and do some advertising on those social media platforms. And it's not expensive. And again, I would suggest, doing something small initially, see what the results are, measure it, and then make the revisions. I personally prefer LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and they each have their strengths. And I know there is a lot more social media platforms out there, but those are the ones that I'm most familiar with. Okay, Mallory, next slide, please. Mallory, you there? There we go. All right, measure. So important. In marketing nowadays, marketing communications, I should say, nowadays, you can measure its performance. And as I said earlier, don't say revenue. I would revisit the stated goals that you had in your strategy stage. And, for example, if your goals were to raise the average deal in your pipeline, has that been accomplished? And again, I would give it several months, if something like that. Perhaps you wanted more opportunities from DoD or from a particular agency, whatever. Is that happening? If your goal was to increase website traffic, which I think every company should have as a goal, or increase the quality of traffic, has that happened? And by the way, quality can be measured in a variety of ways. For example, has the click-through rate increased? Are people more engaged? Are they spending more time on your website? Or are they bouncing off your website? Bounce is a real technical term. It basically indicates if somebody just visits your website for a couple of seconds and they leave, they bounced. You want to minimize that, obviously, and you want people to be engaged in your content. So think about what are some of the specific goals you want, and then measure against those goals. All right, Mallory, let's see. Next slide, please. Revise. I will tell you that no plan, whatever you come up with, will be 100% successful. It's just not going to happen. And that's okay. Look at the results. Look at the data. Where did you succeed? Where did you come up short? And what revisions should you make? Maybe you want to revise your goals. Maybe you need to add or delete some content. And by the way, with some of the delivery means of content, and that could be Constant Contact or MailChimp, you could do A/B splits to see which resonates better with different audiences. And you can play around with subject lines and headlines and so forth. I think, Mallory, that may conclude the presentation. It does. You could contact me at svito@entrepreneurialgov.com. That's entrepreneurialgov.com. There's my telephone number, 703-615-6787. I am, again, most appreciative to Jennifer and Mallory for having me on this webinar today. And back to you, Mallory.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and insight today. Today's presentation has been recorded and can be found on our website or YouTube channel within about 48 hours. If you have any question about today's topic, please contact Stephen at the phone number or email shown on your screen. Thank you, everybody. This concludes the webinar.